Ever wished you had like a whole team of brilliant minds just working for you all the time, nonstop? What if I told you that OpenAI is getting pretty close to making that a reality for about the same price as a Tesla every single month?
Yeah, we're talking about OpenAI's newest thing, specialized AI agents, and they're designed to tackle everything from just regular old everyday knowledge work all the way to really complex scientific research. And you sent us a bunch of articles that go deep into this whole development, which is super intriguing and, potentially could change the game completely.
So let's break it all down. You sent us some really fascinating articles about these AI agents, like what they are and how much they cost and what they can actually do. It feels like something right out of a sci-fi movie, but, it's happening right now.
It really does feel like that, doesn't it? And these aren't just, your run-of-the-mill chatbots. We're talking about software that acts all on its own. They don't just respond to prompts. They actually figure out how to complete these super complicated tasks.
Yeah. Okay, so less like asking Siri for directions and more like having like a super-powered personal assistant who can, analyze market trends for your next big investment.
Exactly. Oh, one of the articles even mentioned an agent that can sort and rank sales leads, by analyzing customer data and then predicting which leads are most likely to convert. Just imagine what kind of impact that could have on sales strategies.
That's wild. But let's talk about the cost, because it's not exactly cheap.
Mm.
OpenAI is testing out a 3-tiered pricing model, so $2,000 a month for knowledge workers, $10,000 a month for software developers, and then a crazy $20,000 a month for research.
It's definitely a premium price. And it's pretty interesting when you think about how OpenAI reportedly lost $5 billion last year. These premium agents seem like a strategic move to go from losses to profit. But will it actually work?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? OpenAI is making a bet that these agents will be so efficient that they'll pay for themselves, basically. One source even said that companies are basically hiring 8 PhDs for the price of 2 standards because the AI can work all the time.
That's a pretty bold statement. It makes you wonder how we traditionally measure value. Is just the output the only thing that matters? Or are there other things, other factors at play, especially when we're talking about tasks that need human intuition and creativity?
This is where it gets really, really interesting. Think about Data from Star Trek. He was super intelligent and efficient, capable of processing tons of information really fast.
But Data also had trouble, understanding human emotions and social cues, right? He didn't have that basic human element.
Exactly. So could these AI agents have similar limitations? Could they have trouble with things that need subjective judgment, empathy, or even the ability to think outside the box?
That's a super important question, and it makes me think of another iconic movie character, HAL 9000 from 2001, A Space Odyssey. He was the super advanced AI system, but in the end, his lack of, human understanding led to some pretty bad consequences.
It's such a classic cautionary tale. And it brings up some big questions about the potential risks of relying too much on AI, even if it seems really intelligent. These examples, even though they're fictional, highlight how complex things are getting as this tech keeps advancing.
For sure. And it's not just about fictional scenarios. Right now, only huge corporations and really well-funded research labs can afford these expensive agents. This makes you wonder about accessibility and if these tools could actually make the gap even bigger between those who have resources and those who don't.
That's a crucial point. One source said this could be the start of a new era where AI pricing is based on the value it delivers, not just the tech itself. That's a really fascinating concept, but it also raises questions about how we even define and measure that value.
It's a really complex issue with some far-reaching implications. If the cost of AI is tied to how valuable people think it is, how do we even make sure it's fair and that there aren't any biases creeping into the system? It's a conversation we need to be having now as this tech keeps evolving.
So we've been talking about these AI agents kind of broadly, but I want to get into some specific examples of what they can actually do. One of the articles mentioned an agent for like high-income knowledge workers. What does that even mean?
Well, think about jobs like lawyers or financial analysts or even like management consultants. Those roles usually have a ton of research and data analysis and report writing. So an AI agent in this case could be like a super-powered research assistant.
Okay, so like instead of a lawyer spending hours going through legal documents, an AI could do all the hard work of finding important precedents and summarizing all the key information.
Exactly. And because they can work 24/7, they could probably get all that done way faster than a human team, which would free up the knowledge workers to focus on the more strategic stuff and the creative parts of their jobs, like dealing with clients or coming up with new solutions.
It almost sounds too good to be true. What about the agents for software developers? We already have things like GitHub Copilot that can help with coding, but these agents seem like they're on a whole different level.
Yeah, we're not just talking about finishing your code here. These AI agents could maybe even debug some really complicated software and manage project timelines and even contribute to designing entire systems.
Wow, that would be a game changer, especially for companies that are having a hard time finding and keeping skilled developers. But what about that top tier, those $20,000 a month agents that are supposed to be for PhD level research? Can an AI really do the work of a whole bunch of scientists?
It's a bold claim for sure, and it brings up some pretty interesting questions. Remember, these agents are designed to work all the time, analyzing huge data sets and reading scientific papers way faster than any human could. One source even compared it to hiring 8 PhDs for the price of 2 colons, which is a pretty big statement.
Yeah, I can see how that would be tempting for research institutions, especially if they're working on stuff where time is really important. But can an AI really be as creative and think as critically as a human researcher?
That's the big question, isn't it? AI has come a really long way, but there are still some things about scientific research that really need that human intuition and ingenuity. Things like connecting ideas that seem totally different, or coming up with hypotheses based on data that isn't complete, or even knowing which questions to ask in the first place.
So it's not all about how fast it can process information and how powerful it is. There's a certain human element like insight and creativity that we still need, even with all this advanced AI.
Exactly. And it's pretty likely that the best way to use these AI agents is going to be through collaboration, humans and machines working together. Think of it like a partnership where the AI does all the heavy lifting with data and information, and then that frees up the human researchers to focus on the big picture stuff and making strategic decisions.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not about replacing humans completely. It's more about using AI to help us do more and be more efficient. But let's go back to that cost thing for a second. $2,000 to $20,000 a month is a lot of money, even for big companies. Will this technology really be worth the price?
That's something that every company will have to figure out. For some companies, especially the ones in really competitive industries or the ones working on some really important research, the return on investment could be huge.
I can see that. Like imagine a drug company using an AI agent to make discovering new drugs faster, or a financial firm using one to get ahead in the market. In those cases, the cost might be worth it.
Exactly. But for small businesses or companies that don't have a lot of money, those prices are just way too high. And that makes you think about whether everyone will have access to this potentially revolutionary technology. If only the richest companies can afford these AI agents, it could make existing inequalities even worse and create a whole new digital divide.
It's almost like we're moving into a new age, where technology isn't just about whether it exists, but whether you can afford to pay a high price to use it. And that brings up a whole new set of ethical and societal questions.
You're right about that, and it goes back to that idea of AI pricing being based on value delivered instead of just the technology itself. But how do we even define and measure that value in a way that's fair and transparent?
That's a tough one. It feels like we're at the beginning of a big shift in how we think about the economics of AI, and it's going to take a lot of careful thought and open discussion to make sure that these powerful tools are used responsibly and that everyone benefits from them.
Absolutely. We have to be really aware of the possible consequences, both good and bad, as we move into this new world of AI-powered innovation.
We've talked about a lot, from what these AI agents can do to the potential impacts on the economy and society because of their high price tags. But there's this one big thing we haven't really talked about yet, and that's the potential risks.
Yeah, you're right. And probably the biggest risk that people talk about is jobs. These AI agents are made to automate tasks that humans do right now. So it makes sense to wonder if they'll just replace us altogether eventually.
Yeah, it's a real concern. We've seen how technology can disrupt whole industries and change the way we work throughout history. But is this time different? Are these AI agents a real threat to people's jobs?
It's a question a lot of people are asking, and nobody really knows for sure, but I think it's important to look at this in a balanced way instead of thinking about AI as something that will replace us. Maybe it's better to see it as a tool that can help us do more.
I like that way of looking at it. So instead of being scared that our jobs will disappear, we should be thinking about how we can adapt and change along with these advancements, right?
Exactly. Think back to the Industrial Revolution. When machines came in, they changed the way we worked completely, but they also created new opportunities and made things more productive and improved our quality of life. The key is to focus on education and retraining so people have the skills they need to succeed in a world with AI.
So like skills that work well with AI's strengths instead of trying to compete with it.
Yeah, exactly. Things like creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, and those things that humans are really good at that AI can't replicate those will be super important.
It makes you wonder if we'll get to a point where AI does all the routine stuff and all the data stuff, and humans can focus on the strategic parts and the creative parts and the parts of work where you need to interact with people. That would be a pretty amazing change, wouldn't it?
It's definitely an interesting idea, and it goes back to that idea of humans and AI working together, a partnership where both sides use their strengths. But even if that happens, there are still risks that we have to think about.
Like what?
Well, one thing is that someone could misuse it. These AI agents are really powerful tools. What if the wrong people get their hands on them?
That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Could someone use an AI agent to do bad stuff like manipulate the stock market or spread lies or even launch cyber attacks?
Yeah, those are all valid concerns, and it shows how important it is to have safeguards and ethical guidelines and regulations to make sure that these technologies are used the right way. We have to think hard about who gets to use these tools and how we can control them so that they don't cause harm.
So it's like any other powerful technology. It all comes down to developing it responsibly and using it responsibly, right?
Exactly. We need to be proactive about addressing these potential risks, but at the same time, we need to explore all the amazing potential benefits that AI has to offer.
It's definitely a balancing act, but this technology is here to stay. So what's the takeaway for our listeners? What should they be thinking about as they deal with this world of AI that's changing so fast?
I think the most important thing to remember is that AI isn't something that's going to happen way in the future. It's already happening, and the choices we make now will determine how it affects our lives in the years to come.
So we shouldn't be afraid of AI or try to stop it. It's more about understanding what it can do, recognizing the risks, and having conversations about how we want to shape its future.
Exactly. We all have a part to play in making sure that AI is used ethically and that it benefits everyone.
That's a great point. Well, on that note, I think it's time for a bold prediction. What do you think the next 5 years will look like for AI agents?
I think we're going to see them evolve really quickly. They'll become smarter, more specialized, and more integrated into everything we do. But I also think people will become more aware of the need for responsible development and deployment. And we'll start talking more about AI ethics and regulations and its impact on society. Those conversations will become more common.
So it's not just a technological revolution, it's a societal one too.
Exactly. AI is more than just code and algorithms. It shows our values and what we want as a society.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure that it reflects the best parts of humanity.
Well said. And that wraps up our deep dive into the world of AI agents. We hope you found it informative and thought-provoking and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
And remember, the future of AI isn't set in stone. We're all creating it together.
Thanks for listening and stay curious.